Hi, thanks for joining me today on Backroads Tourist. My name is Jeff, and today I'm just south of Hay Springs, Nebraska at Walgren Lake. However, Walgren Lake wasn't always called Walgren Lake. It used to be called Alkali Lake. So why did they change the name? Well, I've got a theory. I think maybe, just maybe, they didn't want you to remember the Alkali Lake monster. Walgren Lake, formerly known as Alkali Lake, is a 50-acre body of water in the panhandle of Nebraska, just southeast of Hay Springs. In the 1920s, a huge creature crawled from this lake and spread terror throughout the area. In 1921, the Hay Springs News newspaper published the first account. Another sighting was reported in August of 1922. Mr. J.A. Johnson said that he and others saw a creature 40 feet long that was a dull gray or brown in color with a horn between its eyes and nostrils. This incredible story was soon picked up by other newspapers, including the Omaha World Herald and even as far away as the London Times. The Alkali Lake monster was said to crawl from the lake and steal sheep and calves from nearby ranches. Reports are that search parties went to the lake to hunt the monster, and when it couldn't be found, they made plans to drag a net through the lake. But those plans were never carried out because of the expense. As I walked along the shores of what is now Walgren Lake, I noticed in a remote area of the lake there was this well-worn pathway leading from the lake. It doesn't take much of an imagination to consider that this might be where the monster is leaving and re-entering the lake late at night. When I visited Walgren Lake, it was a beautiful summer day. The park should have been packed with visitors, campers, picnickers, and people fishing. But I was the only one there. It's as if the locals know there's something that's not quite right about Walgren Lake. Man, it's not just the people. I didn't notice any animal tracks in the mud along the shores either. There are reports that local indigenous tribes had stories of a large creature in this lake long before settlers arrived. As the story of the monster got repeated, it also got embellished. Soon the monster attained supernatural powers and could control the weather and emit a green gas. Its footsteps could cause earthquakes, and when it flapped its big ears, it would make huge waves on the lake. The story of the Alkali Lake monster was mentioned in the book Old Jewels by Mari Sandoz. The monster is also featured in an episode of The Secret Saturdays on the Cartoon Network. They even released a toy depicting the creature. So with all this evidence, the Alkali or Walgren Lake monster has to be real, right? Well, let's go back to the beginning. Let me introduce you to John G. Mayer. Mr. Mayer served in both the Spanish-American War and World War I. He was a business owner involved in politics and a correspondent for the New York Herald newspaper, a very respected individual. He also had a wicked sense of humor and liked to play practical jokes. In 1893, he created a so-called petrified man out of cement and buried it where a scientist from the Smithsonian would find it. The scientist declared the man to be 1,000,000 years old, and before long it was being put on display at fairs and events across the country. For another practical joke, Mayer dropped bags of soda into boiling springs to create soda springs that he then said had healing powers. He was also the first person to report the sightings of the Alkali Lake monster. And while this may seem very suspicious, still, there have been reports from witnesses who claim to have actually seen the monster. The last recorded sighting was in 1985. So, Why no encounters since then? Some say the monster died. Others say it never existed at all. There are even residents who jokingly say it moved to Scotland to be with its cousin Nessie. Or it might be waiting for just the right time to make an appearance. Waiting for someone visiting Walgren Lake alone. Someone who ventures a little bit too close to the water. Someone like me. If you find strange stories like this interesting, or if you like visiting unusual, quirky places, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the Backroads Tourist channel. Every week I bring you stories of interesting places all across the United States. I also post videos on cruising tips, tricks, and destinations. So if either or both of those travel subjects are something you like, please click that subscribe button, and while you're at it, please like this video, just to keep the Walgren Lake monster happy. I'd appreciate it. Are you a fan of the supernatural, cryptids, hauntings, and other paranormal things? If so, I've got a few other videos on the Backroads Tourist channel that you just might like. You can join me on a visit to the Bigfoot Crossroads of America Museum in Hastings, Nebraska. This video contains a lot of neat stuff that Squatchers are absolutely gonna love. I also have 3 videos on one of the most haunted places in the world, the Villisca Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa. In one of those videos, I tell you about the strange things I personally experienced when I spent the night in that house several years ago. And if that isn't scary enough for you, I have a video that tells you about both the urban legends and the real-life horrors that have happened at Hummel Park just north of Omaha, Nebraska. If you think you're brave enough to watch that video, make sure you read the comments section to see what others have experienced at that park. I'll make sure I leave a link to some of these videos at the end of this one. But now, let's get back to the Walgren Lake monster. Thanks for joining me today on my search for the Walgren Lake monster. I'm Jeff, and I'll see you on the Backroads.